My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
With supply chains becoming more complex, you need to stay on top of the latest logistics developments. So if you work with logistics, you need the Beyond the Box podcast from Maersk. It's the easy way to keep up to date with everything from digital disruption in logistics to the need for supply chain resilience in today's market. Find out more and keep ahead of the game with the Beyond the Box podcast on logistics insights at maersk.com/insights.
Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. And today I've got a procrastination coach and productivity expert, Chris Abdey from Canada. And he's going to talk to us all about what he does with his clients. We're going to be talking about blocks and productivity hacks, blueprints, and really interested in having Chris on the show. So Chris, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, start off by introducing yourself, and I'm really excited to dive into the questions.
Yeah, sure. My name is Chris. I'm a procrastination coach. Pretty long story of how I got there. I've been coaching pretty much my whole life, but I've actually only had the title for about the last 3 years. And I focus a lot on the dreamers. These are the people that they're entrepreneurs. They maybe want to start a business. They don't know where to go because they like planning it, but they get stuck in the execution. Those are my main clients. The other clients I work with are business owners already. They've usually hit a ceiling of productivity. They have between 5 and 10 employees. They want to expand. They don't really know how, or they're trying to, but they just don't understand why their current systems and processes aren't working.
Yeah, interesting. And so we'll dive right into it. The first question I have for you is, I'm really interested in, so you talk about procrastination, you talk about the roots. I'm really curious there, what are the dynamics at play in procrastination, like barriers, and how can people begin to consciously identify them and consciously, proactively block procrastination?
Yeah, it's a little bit difficult sometimes. There are 5 main archetypes of procrastinator. You might be one or many of those kinds at one time. I actually do have a free quiz on my site that you can take. It's about questions that will tell you which side you're in. The first step is knowing which type you are. So you have the perfectionist, right? So the perfectionist, normally it boils down to the fear of judgment, or it's not quite good enough, or maybe I'm not good enough, and they're constantly tweaking and they just never release it or put anything out. The next one is the worrier. So these are the ones, and I'm sure that some of us can relate to that. Okay, I'm going to do this, but then, oh, wait, what if I didn't do this? And it could be something as simple as, this is a real example, by the way. I asked somebody to go get the control off their table, right? And they said, because they want to change the channel, they're like, oh, but no, what if the battery's dead? I'm like, are you serious, bro? I don't mean to make light of it. It is a very big thing, but sometimes it manifests itself in ways that are a little bit different. Next, we do have the dreamer. I fall into this category just because I have big plans, and I know that a lot of us have big plans. We like planning it, but then when we actually start to do it, then we get lost in the details or we lose interest because it's more fun to plan what we're going to do than to actually do the parts that we need to do it. And then we have the crisis makers. These are your people that perform well under stress, well under pressure. And they're always looking for that adrenaline rush, or they feel more creative, what have you. And then the last sort of archetype there is the defier. People, and again, we all fall into this one too sometimes. If someone tells you to do something, you really don't want to do it, right? Hey, no, I'm my own person. I don't want to do that. And in those cases, it's more about autonomy and wanting to feel like you're in control and you're in charge. That's actually the easiest kind of procrastination to combat, because it's as simple as just reframing your mindset to, I don't have to do this. I choose to do it. Because literally everything in life is a choice. You choose to do this or you choose not to do this. If you choose not to, or you choose to, there's consequences to live with those, but it's a choice, right? That's the easiest one to try to combat.
Yeah. Interesting. If you could give listeners just one piece of advice to break the procrastination habit for good, what would it be?
Just one piece. The one piece, actually, I stole this from someone else. It's just go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and just move. Doesn't matter how small a step or how little you do on the actual project, just start doing it. Because once you start doing it, you'll find it's harder to stop it once you're doing it because you've got a little bit of momentum, right?
Yeah, I really love that. Just 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And yeah, one thing that's really helpful is just 30-minute blocks of time. And in those 30 minutes, try to cram as much that you can put out. And then that just usually email or whatever, it falls by the wayside because you're so it's the other question is, you talk about emotional barriers and what was it? This emotional blocks and heart walls and how they sabotage your productivity. What is that all about?
Yeah. So people don't tend to really think about this, but your emotions and your emotional states play a big part in procrastination. Figuring out why you're procrastinating. Normally, when it's involving about emotions, it's because something about it is uncomfortable to us. Something about the task is uncomfortable to us emotionally. I'll give you a real story. It's actually why I focus in on this. With my mother, I didn't really have a great relationship with her, and we knew she was dying. They basically told us that. And she was in the nursing home and she said she really wanted to see us and stuff. And I did see her, but then I just kept putting it off because it was uncomfortable for me. So I was always busy. I was always working. I was always doing other things. And so I finally put it in for this Monday. And it's just a while ago, but it was a Monday. And she actually passed on the Sunday night. My procrastination actually robbed me of my last conversation I could have had with my mother. In terms of emotional blockages, it can be anger, can be frustration, can be sadness, it can be just plain just not wanting to be uncomfortable. And we have to look at those emotions, look at why those emotions are. When we can regulate our emotions properly, then we'll be able to cut through the procrastination in a lot of instances as well.
Interesting. Emotions and heart blocks. Interesting. Talk about the psychology behind procrastination and understanding and breaking this. You talked about the archetypes. I'm curious if the psychology behind it is different or if you can add to that.
Yeah, the psychology is different depending on which archetype you talk about. There is a lot of overlap though, just in terms of basically just a fear of failure. Some sort of fear is usually at the core of procrastination. For the perfectionist, fear of failure, fear of not being good enough. For the dreamer, it's the fear of maybe too many choices, the fear of not knowing how to start, fear of making a fool of yourself when you start. The fear of the defier gets a little more interesting. That is actually more fear of not having autonomy. And it's a very interesting one because we're obviously all autonomous. It's just, we don't like to think about it. That's why they call them irrational fears anyway. And then the worrier is all fear. What if, right? That's all fear. And the crisis maker is, again, it's mostly about those adrenaline rushes, or they feel that they get this boost of creativity, right? Because that saying is very true. Necessity is the mother of invention. So these people have learned that if you leave it long enough, you kick your brain into fight or flight mode, you do get a burst of creativity. You do usually to save yourself, right? But your work is very inconsistent usually. But the psychology often boils down to something, either a fear or just wanting to just be uncomfortable.
Interesting. A follow-up question I have for you is when you were talking about your personal experience, like your mom, and if it's due to emotional barriers, what can people do to address those emotional barriers? Is there a hack, or how can they do to fix or solve that problem?
Okay. I do want to clear one thing up there first. First of all, it's not fixing. because they're not broken. We're operating in a way that our environment has made us, right? So we're not broken. We're operating as we're supposed to be, as we were conditioned to be. But in terms of emotions like that, the easiest and quickest way is just mindfulness. And I'm sure that everybody's tired about hearing about that, right? But it's true. Because if you are 100% present in the current moment, there isn't any room for anxiety because that's the future, doesn't exist. And there's no room for depression because that's the past, and that doesn't exist. So the only thing that you have is the present moment, and that doesn't leave any room for these other thought processes to start.
Yeah, interesting. What are some quick hacks that anyone can use to boost productivity immediately, especially when their motivation is low?
The boost productivity immediately, I like that one. I like that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, because the little countdown sometimes kicks you into action. I like that one.
Yeah.
I'm also like the reward system. So if you feel like you can't do something, the saying is when your why is high, your cost is low. So either find the reason that you're doing it and make sure it's strong, and then you flip it around. So an example is my wife told me to do the dishes. I don't want to do the dishes. I just worked all day. I'm sitting on the couch. I literally just sat on the couch. I'm not doing the dishes. No, I don't want to do it. But you say, instead of saying that head, you turn it around and say, okay, all right, I'm choosing to do the dishes because I know it's going to help my wife and we're not going to fight. So there's my incentive, right? So you have to make it an incentive. Gamification works really well now because we're all used to little badges, gold stars, and things like that. So find something that you can reward yourself with for these tasks. And you can even make it a little game like a lottery. You can stick all your tasks into bits of paper. You can stick it in a bowl or something if you're more tactile. There's also apps that will do this. And then you randomly pick one out. And when you pick it out, then you can do that task. And once you do it, then you have another bowl that's got like little rewards. Maybe you like reading an extra chapter of your book, or maybe you want to get an extra Starbucks coffee or something. But the key is it has to be something that you like and is important to you.
Yeah. And another corollary to that is you talked about when motivation is low, but like sometimes people procrastinate because they're just so overwhelmed and just like there's a barrage of information. And so what is the first step someone should take when they feel overwhelmed by tasks and just don't know where to begin?
Then there's many ways that you can say this. I like the Japanese way, the Kaizen. Then there's the African way, the elephant, eat your elephant. There's another one, eat your frog. So all these just simply come down to the smallest possible task you can take. The smallest part of the first part of the task. Doesn't even matter how small it is. As long as you can, and the smaller you break it up, the less likely you are going to be to procrastinate. It sounds really silly, but I worked with a client that literally did not want to go driving. Like they almost had an accident. They didn't want to get in the car. Okay. All right. Let's just boil this down. Let's get you through this. So literally what you do, okay, open the garage door. Step 1, walk down the steps. Step 2, walk to the car. Step 3, you see where I'm going with this. Open the door. Step 4, get in the car. Step 5. And as you're doing that, you're going through the list and you're checking it off. And as you're checking it off, what happens in your brain is you're actually accomplishing something, right? So it gives you that sense of fulfillment. And then I had somebody else in another podcast call me out with that example. Say, it's not true. They say, do you play video games? Candy Crush or any kind of video game? You get a badge. How do you feel if you get that little badge? It means nothing. He didn't like that.
Yeah.
But it's true. As long as we're accomplishing something, we're setting ourselves up to make that pattern of behavior.
Interesting. Next question is, what role does energy management play in productivity? I love this question because this is like the end of the day, and just like my mind is not as sharp and focused as it is in the morning. So what strategies do you teach for mastering energy management and productivity?
Oh, energy management. There's actually a very nice acronym for it. E stands for energy, obviously. So mind your energy. So what you're eating, your sleep habits, monitor your energy throughout the day. Again, figure out if you're more energetic in the day, then you might want to put your more important tasks, if you can, in the day. And you want to understand what your drainers are and what your maximizers are. So if you're doing a task that's going to be, it's important, imperative that you do it in the morning, but it's also emotionally draining, try to sandwich it in between two other things maybe that aren't as bad. Or maybe if you don't have something that will help you, then what you can do is you can sandwich it. You can do something you like for 10 minutes before, do that task. And then after you're done that horrible task, you feel drained, do something again for 10 minutes. It'll pick you up again. And then that goes into your N. So of the acronym N, that's negative energy. You want to minimize that. And this one's a tough one, especially when we talk about family, friends, social acquaintances, things like that, right? You want to limit the amount of negative energy that you're around in a day. That's negative self-talk. That's negativity just in general. The next E is essential focus. So you want to be sure that you're focused on one thing at a time. I say no to multitasking 100% of the time. Multitasking is in and of itself impossible anyway, because we only do one thing at a time. But what I mean is focus on one task at a time, because you get what you put in. So if I'm sitting here talking to you and I'm giving you 80% of my attention, but 20% is going to my phone, there's going to be some lost attention there, right? So that's what it's about. And then you've got R, right? Which is you want to recognize the race that you're running. Are you running a marathon? Are you running a sprint? Are you just is this a leisurely walk that you have to go for a long way? It means go all in on yourself. Be authentic. Don't bet on yourself. You can do it. If you focus on what everyone else is doing, what everyone else is saying, I don't think I'd get bet actually. Focused on what everyone else was saying. And then the why, again, is just why you need to do the thing you need to do, right? The why is high, the cost is low. But energy management is really interesting because so many things go into it. Again, there's sleep, nutrition, time of day, energetically stimulating and energetically draining tasks, right? A lot of times clients will come to me and they'll say, wait, what are we doing? Yeah, the first 2 weeks to 3 weeks is just you going through all your tasks on a day-to-day basis. We'll do a daily check-in. And then we have an hour as well, 45 minutes to an hour after that, just to check in, see how you're feeling when you're doing these tasks and really identifying how it's affecting your energy. And then identifying what could be contributing to that. The environment, diet, sleep, distractions, all that fun stuff.
Interesting. Yeah, I know there's those energy drainers. I know what you mean. It's like when you, especially for me, it's email. It's just like the very non-productive ones. Moving on, you have your programs, Procrastination to Productivity and Balance Blueprint. And what are some key takeaways or transformations that participants can expect by listening to this podcast?
The Balance Blueprint is essentially, it's a way to prevent burnout, a way to prevent you from taking on too much. So it does go over again, it goes over energy, it goes over focus, it goes over mindset, because all of that feeds into it. It feeds into one another. A lot of people come to me and they say, what, you stick things in a calendar? Like, sure, we can stick things in a calendar, but again, if you're not looking at your drainers and your maximizers, you might be putting an important task in the middle of the day that maybe you could move to, say, later at night, where it's not as emotionally, you're not going to ruin your whole day by doing it first, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. How can people find you and follow you and reach out to you and learn more from you?
My website, www.procrastinationca. But the best way to reach me is actually through LinkedIn, just LinkedIn. And then my name is Chris Abdey. I think I'm the only one on there with that name.
Yeah, excellent. I really enjoyed this conversation and thanks so much for coming on.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.